running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. Good morning, BigBeat. Market's still moving up. I'm a little surprised. I thought we'd get a little bit of a healthy pullback yesterday, but we just continued to have that melt up.
I'm not surprised. I mean, I think that's the key, right? That we saw a little clarity from the White House, and that here we are, right?
Well, you say that, but yesterday you said the same thing. We were looking for a little bit of a breathing day.
We did. And I thought some breathing days mean pullbacks. Sometimes breathing day means volume dries up. Sometimes breathing days mean that exhausted traders and volatility also dries up. We still don't know direction, but a little bit more clarity. I spoke with Jim.
It was up 2.87%. Oh, excuse me, half a percentage point yesterday. So I mean,
Jim Iorio. I had Jim Iorio on yesterday, and he's, what was interesting was he was talking about it from the perspective of inflation, and we were both talking about the Fed. Again, I think all of us in the economic sphere are all saying the same thing. We don't really understand what's going on with the Fed right now, right? The Fed seems to be sticking to their guns, yet changing their tune, changing the goalposts. We already know all those things, right? But the one thing that I talked about for several times now has been mergers and acquisitions. When you don't know as a company what to do with your money, you either have buybacks, dividends, mergers and acquisitions. You do other things than R&D. So right now, that's what you're seeing, and it's holding the markets up, I think, quite well, actually.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, merger and acquisitions. I heard that somewhere coming into the year. I don't quite remember where it was, but it's everywhere, right? I'm with you, man. It kills me to give you credit usually, but in this case, I mean, you couldn't have been more right. Quite honestly, I mean, you really couldn't. I mean,
I don't think it's about being right or wrong. I think it's about the question mark is, are we seeing the signs that put us in a place to have mergers and acquisitions? Did we put us in a place where the DKS, Dick's Sporting Goods, could buy Foot Locker, right? We know about these things because of world sentiment and what's going on, and that's why we built Quasar Markets, right? Yeah. So that you can understand it, and all these things. And look, some will say I'm a smart guy, but the truth of the matter is I just know where to look, right? If you know where there's a worm under a rock, pull the rock up and the worm is there. You got to know where to look. And when you look at the perspective of this mergers and acquisitions, while I have Spectrum myself, right? Cox and Charter being the parent company of Spectrum, they're still cable companies. Is cable companies going to do well in the future? And I think so, because
they are pivoting as a Spectrum customer also who hates the fact that we got rid of our boxes. They're moving to streaming. Everything that they're focusing on is the streaming box that they're doing in streaming. So they're saying the words. I don't know under the actual
right. I mean, when I had my and of course, they're not just we call them cable companies, but they're not cable anymore. They are using fiber, which is the next level, and I love that, right? But when I hear from the user, hey, you need to put this streaming box in your house, okay, and I do that, and then I watch cable, and I watch the streaming, it's always 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds behind live.
It is. Yeah, it absolutely is.
And when you're looking at streaming and you look at cable and you look at what's really going on. I mean, when I'm on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and I'm watching real life, and then I watch the TV, which is like about 10 seconds behind, the markets have already moved. So people need to understand that it's not about watching TV. By the time the market's already pretty much done their thing, it may exacerbate the move because it may be some FOMO people trying to get in. And if you're streaming, you're even further behind, right?
If you watch, right? Tails. You catch tails on watching TV. The body of the news already.
Look, it's okay. It's not up to speed. It's not up to the level that I have to have. I like instantaneous news because I don't want to be behind. So I learned a long time ago, if you want instantaneous news, understand the news before it happens. Understand how things that are going on before the move happens, right? Understand how Foot Locker becomes a very prominent company when it's a brick and mortar. Why do people want that? Well, it expands, and there's reasons behind it. And if you can understand the reasoning behind it, you'll understand. And what do I mean by that? The other day, I was looking at ophthalmic. I was looking at our own AI, and I found 3 companies that are looking at ophthalmic, and Regeneron was one of them that came up with it for I think we talked about yesterday. Macular degenerative disease, and boom, Regeneron gets upgraded by 3 companies. Why? Because they're seeing the same things, but I saw it before them. So I want to know things that happen before they become news, and that's what makes the difference. And that's what makes Warren Buffett so good. He understood the things, the external influences that produces right now. Look, here's a good example of this today, right? One of the things that you've been talking about forever is Bitcoin. I don't think the key to Bitcoin is governments buying Bitcoin. I think the key to Bitcoin is when you can go to the store and buy a hamburger. We've said this a million times, and be able to buy a hamburger. And this week, Shake Shack has announced that they are going to allow the Bitcoin Lightning Network. You can actually right now physically buy a hamburger with Bitcoin. That's what's holding Bitcoin.
So the only thing I want to say there is you already could. In other words, there's a million ways. Hey, you could have used PayPal to pay for years and use crypto to do that payment. There's a million different things. A lot of that,
but not a direct payment, right?
And well, yeah, no, it is that you have your own wallet. They have their own wallet. You use the Lightning Network. It's the same exact thing we've seen. It's Stripe. Jack Mallers, NCR was the first company to introduce that. Actually, believe it or not, one of those companies from here in Ohio, in the Dayton area where I'm from, or not from, but where I live now. NCR was here. They were the first to introduce. With my background, as you know, some of this stuff is just regenerated news. I mean, Visa. Bigger news there would be that Visa now gives you and MasterCard the ability. MasterCard turned it on. 150 million stores can now accept crypto stablecoins. So even better, you don't get taxed. That's the future. So you know what I mean? I'm with you on that without a doubt.
But we, as you and me and ABCA and everything else going on, we saw the future and we saw that vision, right? And now the vision becomes reality. But for me, the vision is no longer that reality. The vision now becomes bigger, right? How do we incorporate this to the next level? And that's what makes good investors. Absolutely. And good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's why
Steve, you're going too fast for me today. So I did want to bring a couple of points up from that Berkshire. We'll come back to Berkshire in a second. From that merger and acquisition with Charter and Cox, because I do think some of the numbers are important there. Values the 2 companies now at about $34.5 billion. The combined company will be basically Cox. They're going to, I'm looking for my note here. Sorry. Yeah. Cox Enterprise will own 23% of the combined entity, the Liberty Broadband ceasing to be a direct shareholder, and its nominees resigning from Charter's board at closing. So it still needs to get through the DOJ and the FCC, but it is expected to be able to get through there. Again, I just wanted to hit on some of the numbers there.
FCCI, real quickly, Supermicro and DataVolt will build AI campuses in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I mean, that news was, yesterday, all that stuff came out. Steve, I'm going to go and talk to you about what I've been saying. Berkshire Hathaway, right? We know what we've done now. Did you see this news?
No, I haven't seen the new news on it.
So they announced what he did. Berkshire is exited Citigroup, trimmed its bank holdings even further. They sold the entire 14.6 million shares of Citigroup and reduced their Bank of America by 48.6 million shares. They still own 631 million shares, and they dropped Capital One by 300,000 shares. So it looks like they want out of banking and into booze and beer, baby. Constellation.
Okay, here's a great example of this, Howard. We talk about it from the perspective of rates coming down. Okay, if rates come down, banks make less money, blah, blah, blah. The whole cascade, the snowball happened, right? So he's telling you Warren is telling you exactly what's happening, right? Booze and beer. Constellation.
Yeah, they doubled their Constellation brand position, increased it to 12 million shares, 6.6% ownership, now valued about $2.2 billion. Interesting one, but I get it with him, right? Dairy Queen, he bought when it was down, right? Right now, beer is at one of the lowest trends it's been at. People are moving to booze, non-alcoholics, THC drinks, all those other things. But those tend to be fads. What's going to come back and always does eventually beer. And this is Modelo, this is Corona.
As I age, I drink a whole lot less, right? And as life goes on, the kids today, millennials and Gen Alpha, whatever they're calling them, Beta Alphas, all this stuff, they're not drinking. They're not going
to the next generation. Again, he doesn't look like we do. He looks in the future and says, hey, and I get it. Again, you know, it's like buying Dairy Queen when fat was all the talk and you couldn't have fat in your diet. And guess what? Eventually they figured out, it's not that bad. And Dairy Queen takes back off.
Leave Dairy Queen alone, man. I love Dairy Queen.
That's what I mean. But this is the thing. Beer has been down and beaten up as a sector. Also, Constellation's wine business has been beaten down a lot because they got too big too fast. And they dominate, and they're already in those R&D areas. They were one of the first, if you know, Constellation Brands was the Sands family who owns Canopy Growing, which is, and they moved basically from wine to marijuana and cannabis. But before they did that, they started those brands that are combining the two. So I think they're well positioned for the future generation. And I think beer comes back. I do. I think it's just cyclical. I mean, again, coming from that business, I was in the liquor and wine distribution business. And all of those things can be cyclical, whether it be French wines hot, French wines not hot. California wines are hot, they're not hot. $9 price point on wines are hot. $24 net price point on wines are hot. It moves around, but people tend to still drink in times of good or bad. The other thing they added to, Steve, Pool Corp added basically increased their holdings by about 144%, roughly $275 million of new exposure there. Held steady on Apple, so they're still holding tight. He didn't sell anymore. We know recently they had sold, not that recently, but in last year. They were a net seller overall is my takeaway, Steve. So still to today, Warren's acquiring more cash, not spending it yet. Does that give you any, concerns? Does that set off?
No, Steve? I think he's handing the reins over to Greg Abel and Jane with the ability to do what they want to do and invest. Now they have been doing it their way for a long time now, but giving them full reins and saying, look, here's my full board positions, and here you go. You now work with it. He's giving them some cash to work with. He says this all the time. He said it again a month ago. When I have nothing to buy, I'm not buying anything. I'll wait. We had a company we were after, and we didn't go for it because we didn't like it. Okay, so
Well, I'd wonder if that might be that Pool Corp that they couldn't close a deal that he liked to get it, because that one's sort of been kept very quiet, and you hadn't really heard anything till this report on it. So maybe that was what it is. I don't even know. I'm assuming Pool Corp makes pools and whirlpools or something. I didn't have time. This came out just before.
That's a good guess. You're absolutely right. Yeah. They are actually the leader in pool supplies. They don't just make pools. Think about it like salt and chlorine and all the things.
It's interesting because I will tell you, I see more and more people with those, above ground pools nowadays. So supplies for them would make sense. I mean, everybody in my post subdivision, because we're not allowed to have in-ground pools, has those above pounds, and they all popped up last year, every one of them. So, that's where you spend money, right? Like you said, on the stuff that you put into them, the cleaning supplies, the repair stuff, the extra, I know the in-laws can't buy enough little trinkets for their pool. They have the bar that's attached to it now. They've got the gazebo that goes next to it. They have this, they just keep adding it every year. So
and when you have an above ground pool, you've always got to fix it up, right? You always got to make sure the walls of the pool are good.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's one of those ones you tinker with more. When you build the in-ground pool, you do the one-time huge expense, and then you sort of just go from there. With the above ground, it's like little bit. They trickle in and spend a little bit here. So we'll see. It's interesting there. Steve, Novo Nordisk, another one with a CEO stepping down.
Yeah, Wegovy there is the CEO is unhappy, and the board's unhappy because they couldn't keep up with Zepbound. I've said this a million times. It's coming down to the point where every single person will take a pill that'll keep you from being fat. I remember back in the day when they had Olestra, you ate Olestra to keep from getting fat. This is different. Eli Lilly's Zepbound, and I can tell you personal from that experience, is eating. And I've said this, that Ozempic, Wegovy, they're not on the level that is good and less side effects than Zepbound. All the doctors that I know all said Zepbound. Don't do Wegovy. Don't do Ozempic. You'll have less problems, and you'll fight the weight issue much better. And it's been true so far, so good. And I can and of course that's hurting it. Yeah, look at this. Look at this nice comment coming out. Yeah.
Hey, Zora, how are you doing? Hope everything's good there in Arizona, my friend. Yeah, I mean, again, we sorry, just trying to put this in here. Yeah, I mean, I will say though, Steve, your UNH bounced back pretty nicely here.
Yes, we talked about that yesterday. I'm very upset with the former CEO and the way that they're handling this now is not professional. They need a professional company to come in and fix their problems, and do it third party, not try to do this, not try to hide anything and do it internally. They need to. This is one of those. Hey, you don't know the problem? Call BDO, right? Maybe they need to call BDO in this situation. Right. But they're too big to fail. UNH will come back. Look, I've said the same thing with Boeing. It was painful for the last, and I've got friends that were in UNH. I liked it yesterday, as I told you that. I wasn't sure if that was the case to buy the dip there. But look, this thing was worth more. Even when the company started downgrading UNH yesterday, they still they still had the target price of the company in the 350s, not the 280s, right?
Above.
So
yeah,
right. Yeah, they're saying the same thing that I'm saying now. Hey, we get it. There's a problem here, and we're going to correct this problem, and we're going to fix it, and we're going to smack them around. But having the chairman of the board being the CEO at the same time, your company's in trouble, right? When you've got to take over everything. I hate to keep harping on Warren Buffett, but he did the same thing as Shearson Lehman. He was chairman and became president CEO of the company, right? He didn't want to have to do it. Him and Munger took Shearson Lehman over. I'll say the same thing I've been saying, right? UNH, shame on you, right? This is something that happened, but I think they'll come out of their doldrums. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll come back stronger than ever. Jim Iorio said something very interesting to me yesterday when I asked him about the inflation rate, and he goes, I'm in the business of restaurants as well. See, my own restaurants too. And he goes, we had to raise prices because of tariffs and things like that. And as prices come up, because I was asked, do prices come down when tariffs come up? No, we don't. We don't lower prices because quite frankly, we don't know the next thing around the corner is, right? UNH is going to do the same thing. Well, it's two
parts too, is because commodities don't necessarily pull down either. So, as a restaurant owner for a long time.
But UNH, the premiums aren't going to change. They're not going to say, well, we've had problems at UNH, so we're going to lower your premium. That ain't going to happen. It's probably going to go up, right? So the margins might get bigger at UNH. That's why I'm saying I think that once they get their footing again, I'm not going to say get their bearings straight, because they need to get footing first. To get their bearings and then set the course and then get back on track. Is that going to take a while? I don't think so. It didn't take Boeing a long time to get back on track because they were too big to fail. UNH is too big to fail. And so I think you're going to see it's going to be slow trudging for the next few weeks, but I think you'll see it back up. I think you'll see, like we did with the president, right? All these some good news. But if this is all the bad news is where the stock's at, okay. So can it go farther down? Yeah, of course, it can totally go down farther, but I don't think so. I think we're starting to build a base down here, and I think unless there's any other news out there that we don't know about, right? Then I think we're.
Well, I guess you'd have to see how that DOJ thing plays out. Is it is there a fire where the smoke is, or is it just a smaller accounting error?
There's almost a fire with the smoke, right? There's almost always.
That's what I'm saying. That's
cleaned up very quickly, right? If it's a Medicare issue, they'll clean it up, right? If it's an issue of just pure incompetency, that's easy to clean up. If it's criminality, that's easy to clean up. You fire the person, you put them in jail. If it's something more than that, if it's systemic coming all the way up the top, that's a problem. Like Coinbase, right? Coinbase had a problem, right? So yeah, I like all that. And they're talking about Nova North right now at ABC.
What's that? Oh yeah, Steve, are you concerned at all? Did you see the article on Market Watch talking about the skew of calls today, the amount of calls out there, and how this, Okay, I just I thought this was really interesting.
3 months ago, yes, the case was very much so. 3.4 trillion in options expiring. Doesn't scare me anymore because we call this a Friday now. So you know, it's silly, it's dumb. I don't like the way that the options world has changed like this. And I'm saying that as a big fan of options. As everybody knows here, I love playing options. I don't like this because, quite frankly, it's becoming more gambling than anything. If you have that much expiring on a $27 trillion market, there's something really wrong here.
Well, and more importantly, that the put-call ratio has fallen to 0.7, lowest level since February, when we were in the middle of the doldrums of everything, of tariff war, you know.
You mean when the world was ending tomorrow?
Yeah,
and the world
so now we're seeing
apart?
a heavy bias towards call buying as stocks have climbed. So, you know, could there be a rug pull today? You know, and we've seen the VIX take its fastest drop.
I want to be the ticker taker, right? When the markets were falling apart, I wanted to buy their stock. And when everybody's rushing the door to buy, I want to be the one giving them my stock. Great. Emotional trading never works, and I had to learn that myself, right? Stop the emotion, and you'll be a much better trader. Think about it from a thesis perspective, or think about it from the way that we trade here. You'll do better in the markets. I didn't get scared with NVIDIA when it went below 100. I didn't like it. It was butt hurting, but I didn't get scared. And you know what? Look where we're at now, 137 today, right? Is that where we're about to be?
Yeah. I gotta look up. NVIDIA is 136.50.
Yeah, we're almost back to 136.37 right now. 136.41. We hit. I think we hit 137 earlier today. Look, I think that, you know, people have to lay off of the they have to lay off a little bit of the emotions that's trading, because you're seeing it and they're getting scared and then they're buying options against it, right? Oh my God, let me throw some quarters at the option, and then those quarters are gone. Those quarters add up to dollars, those dollars add up to $100, and adds up to thousands of dollars over time, right? Stop the crazy zero DTE nonsense. Yeah. We're hearing reports that Zelensky, Macron, Merz, Starmer, and Tusk had a call with Trump and Ukrainian president spokesperson said today. Wow, that's a big meeting today here. Maybe something's coming down the pipe. You thinking that, Howard, about Ukraine?
I don't know. I've stopped trying to figure that one out because too many variables, too many egos at track there. You've got three of the biggest egos in the world that all want to be able to declare a win there. So that's going to make that one tough.
Yeah, that's an interesting post for me, because I think they spoke to Trump by a phone, so he's phoning it in.
It's just yeah. They're all saying, "Hey, stick with us. Don't side with Putin, and don't go on your own." So no, that one doesn't get me too excited there. Steve, another hit on Take-Two here today. Down about one. Oops, sorry, I hit it and then took it off. Down about 1.3 as they've issued their full year booking guidance, well below street consensus. They're looking at about $6 billion versus $7.82 billion consensus. So pretty big downgrade, and their full year guidance here by Take-Two. Not too surprising, right? They delayed. If everything was based on GTA and you're not going to release it, there's not going to be any profits for a while.
Okay, so you're absolutely right. I was excited about GTA coming out. I'll tell you what I'm more excited about is Red Dead Redemption 2 coming out on Switch. If you've got that many people buying a new Switch 2, that game is going to be very hot, I think, on Switch 2, because now you can play Red Dead, because Red Dead's such a big game that you can't just play it anywhere, right? You have to have a console or some way of playing it, you know, laptop or whatever. It's not one of those mini games, and the fact it's coming to Switch 2, really, that's interesting to me. I wouldn't write off GTA 6 either. I like GTA games. How to be a drug dealer is probably, if you want to learn, play Rockstar games, right? Take-Two.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Listen, I don't necessarily agree with the programming of it, and my 4-year-old will never be anywhere near it. But yeah, I do like playing it. I can't.
What about Borderlands? I mean, Borderlands seems to be another one too. I think we're a little bit of a drop there in NVIDIA on the for the open.
Steve Flanagan bringing up, and I was just going to point out, gold down about 2% today, saying that gold might tell you something about the Ukraine. We'll see for sure. I mean, like I said, I hope we see something out of there. that is meaningful and has some direction and not just more.
Well, we'll say Peter Schiff's been tweeting more than lately. You know, the two main characters in that game. God, I mean, I've told you a million times, right? You want to know if gold's going to go down? Just watch commercials. Are you seeing any gold commercials? They're like every other commercial now, because they're trying to dump their gold. So yeah, I think the gold companies know that gold is falling apart, and you're seeing Peter Schiff constantly berating, saying gold's going higher, the world's ending tomorrow. No, I don't think so. So there you go. I don't see it. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
About 2 minutes here to the open, 3 minutes to the open.
Pretty muted. Advanced decline up about 1,500 right now. Dixie at 177 here. Really hasn't done much here. It's sort of been just marching down slightly here without a real move to one way or the other. Like we said, SPY set to open slightly up, Q slightly up. We'll see what we get there. VIX nicely back down around that 17.5 range. Keeps me happy there. Bitcoin holding steady at 103 or so. It's been really attached to that 103,500 area here for the last.
Popping here now. Nvidia again. Nvidia moving a little bit here.
Nvidia
I mean, up to the upside. Defense Ministry of Umerov said Russia and Ukraine agreed to exchange 1,000 POWs from each side, according to Ukrainian TV. So I think Steve Lang is right. Gold falling here. I think you're seeing all this, the signs that the war might be getting close to being over here in Ukraine. I think this is some really good news. This might be very bullish today on at least on this side of things.
Nice.
The market's kind of quiet, very muted this morning. I'm not. It just seems to be not where we're used to here. Like, it is Friday. I think people are ready to go, but yeah.
Still about 1 minute away here.
All right, so let's get to it. Yeah, looking at silver now, 32.12 here. So maybe some holding up here a little bit on the silver market. All right, here we go. But I don't see anything. Do you, Howard? I just don't. Yeah, a little bit of selling in the Nvidia side of things. Stocks up 1,600 there, tick down about 200. There's just nothing going on here. It's kind of a quiet morning, which is kind of nice, actually.
We'll say most of the laggards today are mining companies: SSRM, NEM, FCX, all down a little bit here this morning as the gold prices do drop. So we are seeing that. Here we go.
VXX is very quiet
First
here.
move is to the downside here, but we'll see if that holds up. First move is to the downside on the Qs. 520 is the area here. Advanced decline stays right around that 1,500 level, so not really much of a move one way or the other there in the open. You don't see that.
Yeah. I think
did move up a little bit here on that news.
Going after liquidity, I think this morning, and I don't. There's no liquidity out there. I think they're trying to algos. I think the algos are confused this morning. There's not enough really good news and stuff like that. Oh, guess what? Jim Cramer just said. IPOs and M&As, they are coming back. I say Goldman Sachs, buy. Jim, you're a little late to that party. We've been talking about that for a while now. Sorry, bub.
Surprised at a fairly muted response to Berkshire Hathaway announcing what they've done. Usually you see all the ticks on the 1 minute, they're pretty significant, but usually when they announce, you tend to see a move jump one way or the other. Muted so far. tick slightly negative still here. Qs have dropped below that 520 level. NVIDIA back below 136 here. Google, one of the big winners today, up about 2.74%, Steve. Let's move to the upside there.
Yeah, it just seems like there's a little bit of selling here, but I think it's just I mean, you talked about it, this $3.2 trillion worth of calls coming off. I don't see anything there. Let's keep our eye on UNH here a little bit this morning, right? See if they're out of their problems, and they're dropping a bit here today, but not much. There's some selling in this morning because they were up a bit, about $10. I think we're not quite out of the woods yet with UNH.
Right. Nope, as you said.
But the price target,
SPY still sliding to the downside, lows of the morning. Same thing. Q sliding a little bit, lows of the morning. Advanced decline dropped tremendously from that 1400 level now to only 727. So we're definitely seeing some selling come across. We'll mention at the same time, 10-year still moving to the downside, just broke back below 4.4 here, 4.39.
Yeah, as rates come down now, banks don't do it, right? And it helps with service our debt. So, yeah. Okay, we're hearing Umarov, which the defense minister now says that they have just discussed at talks in Istanbul about a ceasefire. So, yeah, that's what I kind of figured we were going to start to see a little bit. I like this UNH. This popped down to the bottom here.
The other thing there, too, didn't we hear about a ceasefire 2 weeks ago that lasted less than 4 hours?
And I think that problem was a guy named Vladimir Putin. So I think this time, I think the both sides are now talking about it. We're still seeing the advanced decline line slipping a bit here. So the sentiment here is still a little bit fairly to the downside. Nothing here. I still think that it could be what happened yesterday, right? The sell-off in the morning, and then they just send it up in the afternoon.
Yep, absolutely could be.
Could be just scared money in the morning, and the institutions, the buyers are buying in the afternoon, and then the next day they find that their stocks are up. So the shorts are not on the right side of things. They've not been for a while. I think the shorts are pissed off, but we're not out. We're not out of the woods yet. I don't think anybody should say that. We're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, trying to climb back up here, 136.20. Nice little move. I hit that. I clicked on that. Damn it.
Yeah, advanced decline line. If it gets negative, that's probably a rough place to be here if you're trying to go positive.
Yeah, advanced decline just lost another half of it. It was, like I said, it was at 1,400 on the open, just dropped down to 7, now to 360, 370 in that area. So we are seeing some more sell-off here. Dow Jones down about 13 basis points here, pretty flat on the day. Q's opened up at 520, trying to get back to that level right now at 519.90, so it's not doing too bad. SPY opened up just below 591, and it's still there.
Yeah, okay, UNH really bouncing off that bottom down there, so I'm starting to feel a little bit here. There's still a negative sentiment out there on UNH, so nobody should get excited about that yet. Trying 104 again here on this pop here on Bitcoin now, sir.
I will say the one that bounced back there, I got out a little too early, was that Rigetti, up another 7.28% today here.
You made money, dude. Take it off your radar now.
Yeah, I had a naked call, so I wasn't staying in it.
Ooh. Yeah. Good for you.
But they are killing it. AI is back, I guess. And again, we know that AI all talking about the quantum deal and what's going over.
AI never left. We're not even starting AI.
And again, we see $1 billion Qatar deal. Quantanium, majority owned by Honeywell, signed a 10-year deal up to $1 billion joint venture with Al Raban Capital to boost quantum technology adoption in Qatar and the surrounding regions. Includes funding developer training and providing access to Quantanium systems. Announcement coincided with President Trump's Middle East trip, formed part of the larger multi-billion-dollar U.S. trade package. Among other deals, a record order of 160 Boeing planes for Qatar Airways. As we know, the partners will co-develop quantum applications tailored to regional needs, spanning finance, precision medicine, genomics, material discovery, and emerging field of generative quantum AI, while training for the next generation of quantum developers. So again, we saw so much out of there. I will mention that the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Fund also made another huge Bitcoin purchase. I have that somewhere. Yeah.
Tesla now up almost 2.5% here. Big pop there. Q's still slipping here a bit.
Yeah, seeing a little bit of weakness here, but again, part of that might be folks getting out of their calls and into
maybe they're rolling over into the actual stock. I mean, they made some good money. Roll it over into your stock. Don't just take the cash. Take the equity.
Tesla moving up nicely today. Thank you for that note there. Oops, I just moved out of the wrong spot. There we go. Thanks, Brett. Absolutely. Tesla up a little over 2%. It was battling to get back across that 350 area. Man, what a move that's made when you think about 220, huh?
Yeah.
Just a few weeks ago.
The minute that
when the CEO focuses on a company and not on government.
Right.
Hell of a move up. You got 361 is the key. Key there is going to be trying to get across this 361 area where we took that fall from.
The Russian delegation now posting says each side will set out its vision for a future ceasefire in detail. So there is a ceasefire coming. It is going to be in detail. I like this. This could tell you everything. And yeah, I mean, I know we're seeing the gold is just a little bit up here, bouncing, but this is some good news here, I think. We're seeing the same thing in NVIDIA this morning. There's, popped up on the open and then slipped on the because the traders taking some profit. Silly traders to take a little bit of profit. I don't mind. I don't blame them. But I think this may melt up like it did yesterday. Oh, look at that, 104 again in Bitcoin.
Yeah, we haven't been able to hold it though. We're just right there. It's just doesn't want to break it. And 105 is
right. Yeah,
is definitely going to be the big spot to try to break through. A break of 105 would turn me back into more bullish on. Short term. Is there
a 105 something or just 105 in general?
Let me pull it up. I think I have it set in. Oh, I took it off. Yeah, it's it really is now 105. Yeah, it's like 105.5.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was doing. Yeah. And I think
any hold above 104, any hold above 105 flat it would be the next level to take off from. But we haven't been able to close above 105. We haven't closed above 105 since January 21st.
The world was ending at 72 too, right? I mean, when we bought that big buy down there, I'm still long from that 72 too. So I'm not. My thesis isn't changing. I think the liquidity issue is still there. There's not enough Bitcoin out there in the exchanges, and people are buying it whatever's out there, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What do you think about Apple blocking Fortnite in their whole ecosystem?
I thought that got worked out, that they had taken that off. That was a while ago, I thought. Now they're blocking it again?
In the EU, yeah, this morning. Yeah.
I mean, I don't like that type of thing in general, as you know. That's why I like decentralization and no control by an individual person or entity to make those decisions. I've never been a Fortnite guy, though. Yeah, CoreWeave, Brett, definitely taken off. All the AI centers, like we were saying, everything that has to do with AI today, data centers, all moving to the upside on this news out of the Middle East. Yeah, without a doubt. All of them moving up.
AI 2 months ago was dead, Howard. AI was gone. We're not going to use it where it's overused. No one's using AI. Man, no one's using Google. I mean, I don't really understand. No, I mean, I haven't used Google in a long time. Maybe a map, maybe to find my way direction to a restaurant or something. But the truth is, everything that I'm looking at now is AI. I mean, I'm using so many different types of AIs, agentic AIs, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, CoreWeave did post quarter one revenue of 981 million, up 420% year over year, and dropped on that news. So, it's good to see it. And it talks about how NVIDIA will deliver 18,000 of its advanced GB300 Grace Blackwell chips to Hemain, supporting the build out of the 500 megawatt AI data center in Saudi Arabia over the next 5 years. So again, all those companies, any company that was involved or mentioned in the news over in Saudi Arabia is definitely moving tremendously to the upside today. Hughes and SPY now negative on the day.
Yep. Like I said, I think there was some profit taking. Some they're trying to test that bottom, but it ain't gonna happen. I think we do what we did yesterday. I think we just melt back up as institutions are buying. They're not selling. They just need any good news today, and this thing goes sky high again.
I will say what's interesting is, the thesis about gold in the Ukraine since the announcements, gold's moving back up. So that's weird.
It's interesting that that Brett talked about CRWV. Bob Lang is getting crazy on the. If you don't know Bob Lang, I'll post his quote here from Twitter. So whoever talked about CRWV, there you go. He talked about it yesterday, so he knew something going on there. Yeah, tick is starting to push up a little bit here. Had a feeling that was probably about to start here. Oil is still 61.36 now a barrel, so we need to see oil push back up if we're going to see broader market pressure. Because $61 a barrel is still telling me recent time. I don't know what people are thinking. That's
hey,
still.
Steve, you have a good resource. I want to try to figure out how prices should move based on the price of how gasoline prices should be moving based upon the price of a barrel of oil. Is there a good place for me to kind of research that?
Yes, it's called quasarmarkets.com. Come hang out with me. I'll explain oil to you. I learned from some pretty big oil people myself. And of course, being an oil investor and as well as owning oil wells. I can tell you that oil is a very different animal when it comes to investing, especially trying to understand the pressures of the geopolitical side of oil, because everybody uses oil. You may have an electric car, you still got oil, right? You live wherever you live, you're using oil. If you're wearing lipstick, you're putting on oil. Petroleum is literally in everything. I will tell you that there's probably a good book to read. It's called The Prize. I actually know the guy. Yeah, it's called The Prize. A guy named Daniel Yergin, nice guy, by the way. Knows oil. If you want to understand oil, I would tell you to look up the book The Prize by Daniel Yergin. Yeah, that one will probably explain to you. My former boss, I'll give him props to. Morgan Downey wrote a book called Oil 101.
Okay.
I will say, yeah, oil. If you really want just the basics of oil, Oil 101 is another book that I would say too.
Okay, I was just curious because I just, I've seen this huge move in oil and not really a huge move in gas, and I'm just trying to figure out where that is, why it is.
And I have autographed books by both of them, by Daniel and by Morgan's. Morgan's signed a book to me too as well. I used to work for Morgan, by the way.
We have moved back into the positive here on the Qs and the SPY.
Like I said, I wasn't too scared about it. I think we go higher. Yes.
Advanced decline, like I said, had bottomed back down to that 300 area, now back up about 1,000. So we do see now again some moves to the upside coming in. We'll mention, Steve, there's been sort of a good shift overnight into alts from Bitcoin sort of stayed stable. Ethereum up about 2%, Doge up 4%, Pepe up 4.5%. Aave was up like 8%, now up 6.24. Perp up about 16.93. So we're seeing a little bit of a cyclical move into the alts today on crypto. So that's good to see. And Bitcoin dominance came down a little bit here too.
The decline line pushed up to 1100 here. So I had a feeling that that this morning's sell-off was just pushing out liquidity, and here we are, and now we're pushing back up. So I had a feeling they were testing that bottom yesterday. So
still need to see the Qs break through that 520 75 area to say that we're moving to the upside. You got to break that resistance. Looks like it wants to right now, but that's I think off.
Yeah, I think we have a choppy session. I think people are nervous. I think they're tired. I think we're getting closer now to the beginning of summer. People are starting to plan their trips and stuff. I know the same thing with me. For those of you who don't know, Howard Greenberg here will be captaining the ship for the next week. I'll try to be around a little bit for some shows and stuff too as well. But we're in good hands with Howard Greenberg.
Steve, the Q's struggling to get above that 520. It just tried it again, got rejected pretty firmly. So the bears are keeping it under wraps so far.
Yeah, it's an algo. It's an algo day. The algos are
so far we're seeing that same thing. SPY couldn't even get back to the highs of the morning cash open before retracing a little bit. They're doing a little bit better of a walk up here, but we're not seeing it so far. VIX is pretty standard at that 1755. It's sort of been staying between that 1725 and 1825 area. Bitcoin right about that 104 area again. It's sort of that's where it's moved up to, and then it just keeps on getting knocked right back down to 103.5 or so. So we'll see who can get the win today. Will the Bears take the win or the Bulls? It's definitely
neither. It's going to be a choppy day. It's one of those days to go fishing. Either go long, go short, or go fishing.
Coinbase erased all of those losses yesterday on that tough day.
Of course they did.
And now right back where they were before. The issue with the hack and the issue with the DOJ. So I will also mention that issue with the DOJ. That's why I say is there smoke, is there fire, because, the comments there from the SEC are related to like 3 years ago, a reporting issue on a difference of how you were supposed to report your subscribers. It isn't a issue that is currently a problem with the SEC. So that has bounced right back up. And Coinbase has made it clear they'll spend up to about $400 million to actually make whole anybody that does get socially engineered hacked from this information, from the breach the other day.
Bitcoin here near the highs of this early session here. It's quiet. Tick up 230, 260 now. Advanced decline up 1300. I'm just not seeing much here today. Quite frankly, I think it's kind of another breather day, but I think that they'll breathe with the biases to the upside now. I think the path of least resistance today is now sideways. There's no real desire for anybody to buy or sell right now. I think all of the crazy capitulation selling is over. I think we're right in the midst of this back and forth tug of war. Whatever the next tweet is and the next news article is going to come out. This is really where you do use your charts. Now, I've been talking about stop clutching your charts. This is where you get back to your charts now. This is where charts come in handy, where you'll start to understand, okay, which direction are we going to go in? Here's the highs, here's the lows, here's the game plan, here's where we're at. So, yeah, I like this. This is a much better situation here than where we were. But I'm not really seeing much, it's yeah.
Nice moves up again. CoreWeave, Supermicro, Rigetti. We know Liberty Broadband, based on their merger and acquisition with Charter and Cox Communication. Riot Platforms, Bitcoin mining company, up about 5.92%. Bilibili, China, back in play today, up about 5.89%. So we are seeing some decent moves. Coinbase, like I said, up 5.43%. Webull having another nice day. Aaron Scherz is happy, up another 5% today.
Yeah, India now saying that they are planning on slashing Pakistan's water supply with a new Indus River project. That could exacerbate the problem over there. Reuters is now posting that.
Well, water has been one of the, if not besides Kashmir, water has been the issue, right?
Right.
And the rights to the river.
That's right, rights to the river. That is the basics of life.
You have to have water, especially in that area of the world.
kind of quiet again. It's still quiet. I like quiet. Sometimes quiet's good. The news being like the slow, like I said, it's literally based on whatever the next tweet is and what the next. And right now we see Trump tweeting about Taylor Swift. So,
okay.
I guess when you don't have nothing to say, right? Let's talk about Taylor Swift. I don't know why she's even in the.
Stephen, as you mentioned, I do want to point out Eli Lilly, nice move up the last 2 days as Novo Nordisk is having trouble replacing CEO. The one that is moving up nicely here, Eli Lilly up 2.28% today. It had a nice up day of about 5%.
In class. Eli Lilly is best in class. That's why I'm saying that. It's been that way.
AstraZeneca getting a little bit of love here today on that same type of news. So the competition, and again, that's what I like to see. We're actually seeing markets make sense, right? If somebody has bad news and it could help their competition going up, people with the bad news going down. Like you said, this charts matter. Mean reversion is back in play for sure. That's what I've been playing the last few days, is things that overextend to the top, playing them to the downside, things that overextend to the downside, playing to the upside. That's what I've been looking at here. Interesting to see broadband down when most of the chips are moving to the upside, with a pretty significant move to the downside, about 1.68% here. Let's see if there's any news on it. Not really. I guess the news is they weren't really talked about or included in Saudi Arabia, right? Would that be the takeaway there, Steve?
Yes, Saudi Arabia has been Abu Dhabi and in the Middle East has really been in the forefront of the news the last few days, right? So,
banks out in the news of Warren Buffett getting out of banks in a pretty significant way has most of the banks down today. JP Morgan down about 66 basis
David
points.
Tepper, Appaloosa Holdings, we all know, selling FedEx stock. That's a little interesting to me. Maybe because he made some big money on FedEx. But I don't know that
it had the big jump the other day after that move with that Amazon. Right. Yeah, maybe it's all the news for him.
Yeah, I can understand
depending on when people got in, I don't blame them for getting out. Bank of America getting hit here pretty hard after Warren announced. They announced Warren got out of there, down about 1.41. Same thing, Citigroup down about 45 basis points. I'm looking at Capital One. Where's my Capital?
There it is, 103,980. Here we go. Come on, 993, 990.
Down about 31 basis points on that news. So
let's go, Bitcoin. Let's go. We're hearing reports that Broadcom's data, AVGO, has been stolen in a payroll provider ransomware raid, according to
there you go. There would be your answer, Steve. That's what I was asking. I said it didn't make sense. Everything else going through the sky, basically. I mean, I get ASML because the European part of that, they haven't been included in any of the discussions that I've seen recently about chips and anywhere in the world. So I do get them moving to the downside significant. Another one getting hit hard here, Applied Materials. I believe they had earnings today. Give me 1 second. I have that actually. Where is my Applied? Here we go. Applied Materials now down about 6.19% following its fiscal Q2 report. Revenue came in at $7.1 billion, slightly down than what expected. And the semiconductor segment revenue was $5.26 billion, again, slightly below. So not a huge miss, but this has them down about 6%. And this is a good line here. Street View, Applied Materials falls short compared to its peers. I think this is one where all the good news that's out there by everybody else has them, decent earnings, not moving them up very much, right, Steve?
That's right. 104 breached again. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's. I'm sorry. Is your computer not going to use chipsets in the future? I don't really understand. No matter what we do, we have chips. We gotta have chips. Yeah, I think it's silly not to be invested in the chipset market. I mean, even older companies like Cisco was big yesterday, right? So yeah.
And I would say Applied Materials comes pretty close to what they do also, what Cisco does. They tend to make a lot of the router switches. I am targeting. If I see them fall down to this 162.17 level, I could be looking at a bounce back play here on AMAT today. So AMAT's definitely on my radar here. That 161 area on a further pullback. I like the company in general. Coinbase now up 6%. All the Bitcoin miners up, led by Riot, Iron, TerraWolf, CleanSpark. All of them moving to the upside here nicely today. So Bitcoin mining definitely having a strong day. I will point out Riot's going to hit resistance here in that 960 area. It's trading at 927 right now. That 200-day MA, again, knocked it way down here. That's going to be the thing to see, Steve. Like you said, we're not out of the woods yet. I want to see on, this would be a good stock to use as an example. You know, we made a nice move up here, and it failed at this level in early March. And we're trying to challenge that level again. It's the first time we're coming up. It's almost the same exact area on the 200-day MA. If we can break through this area of $10 with a Riot, it would show me that this market has legs to continue back up towards the highs we saw earlier.
104.11 there. 104. Yeah, look, advanced decline now. The highs here, 22.86 here. So, like I said, I thought the sell-off this morning was a little silly. I think the liquidity there was sopping it up, and then we're going to go higher today. So look at it. I think it's going to follow right behind it.
Yep.
The Bitcoin's really leading the way today.
I do see Mr. Flanagan's in here. I do need to step away for a second. I'm going to let you two take it over.
Oh, I get him all to myself. That's a cool thing to do, man. I don't usually get that.
Here we go. Good morning,
Steve Flanagan. Let me tell the viewers a little bit about Steve. I'm gonna talk about Steve Flanagan a little bit before we get started here. Steve Flanagan is giving of his time to some great causes and helping people in the world of finance, and especially in forex. Guy has been there over 40 years. Was the former head of JP Morgan's forex desk. The knowledge that you spit out, Steve Flanagan, it's just ridiculous, to be honest with you. And giving of your time is something that I respect a lot of, and I thank you from Quasar Markets Hearts that you do this. Because you've been right, and you are helping us as a company and people that are following us understand the macro political side politics, all of that. You've been dealing with it for a long time, and sometimes it's confusing to new traders, right? It was very confusing to me when I was a 19, 20-year-old trader and starting out, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I look at it, and we look back on our time, and I always say the same thing, Steve. It's like we should look back in our life as we accomplish things and make sure we see those things. And I wanted to thank you so much from Quasar Markets Hearts that you give of your time. You don't just give your time, you do it 3 times a week. And you have been right. You told all of us here to chill out. By mid-May, Trump will be back to normal. The world will be starting to come back, and all the good news. And look what's happened. You've called out the right numbers at the right times, and people need to listen to that and think about it from that perspective.
Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate that intro. But, humble is always a good word, and I've always followed it in my 43 plus years. And, I'll say better lucky than skilled any day. But you're right, Steve. I've seen a lot. And what I would encourage the traders, I'm very blessed in my career, and I feel the need to give back and offer some insights. So one insight I'd like to start with you today, Steve, we've talked about a quiet market. And whenever the markets get quiet, it's always, a very important point. Is it quiet before the storm? Is it always darkest right before the light? And this is the time, as a day trader who's in and out, looking for everything. And goodness gracious, we've had more than enough to trade on in the last 45 days.
Okay, so as the market's getting quiet here, what is that you're looking at specifically to help me. I said earlier, someone asked me about mergers and acquisitions. I've been talking about M&A that you should see that sometime spring, summertime because the numbers out there, because the 10-year, because of these, I gave all the factors of why, and M&A is going crazy. So what are you saying that the people should look at specifically? Pull that rock up. Where's that worm at? What is the worm that you're looking for?
Well, I'll have a basket of positives right now. Okay. We've been talking about that, but right now, as a trader, I'm watching very carefully the price of gold, and I'm watching very carefully the dollar yen. Those are the two, because if I go back to April 2nd, what's happened in the world? The money moves first. Money jumped into the yen. Yen is a safe haven currency, the Japanese yen. The second thing outside of the currency markets was gold. Gold, new high, every day it seemed. Suddenly, we've seen the dollar yen move higher, and now we're seeing gold drop. What I look for are patterns, and I look for things that suddenly are changing in the environment that we've had over the last 45 days. Those two jump out at me. Specifically, if I look at the dollar yen, we're presently around the 145.5 level. Let me describe what a bottoming pattern looks like, or when money begins to very quietly. I talked about turning a gigantic ocean liner in a lake and not letting anybody see it. Virtually impossible. Remember, in the currency market, $7.5 trillion trades in a day. So when people are running several billion-dollar positions, how do you turn that without influencing the market? Last week's close was 145.36. The week before, 144.95, 143.64, 142.11. 5 weeks today would make 5 weeks of slightly higher lows. That is the patterns that I look for, especially when the market gets quiet, because I'm trying to sniff out where is money going to move next. It's getting out of gold. It's getting out of safe havens. And let's throw one more in there, because I love to talk currencies, the dollar MEX. The dollar MEX, when we were all talking, was a 10% currency. Why wouldn't you park money at 10% in a MEX and see the appreciation? Look at that move. But now Mexico has cut rates to 8.5%, and they're still talking. That was yesterday. They're still talking additional cuts. So suddenly all the money that's parked, earning now 8.5%, is beginning to move. Look at the bottoming pattern. Last week's close, 1949.35. We're presently at 1943.25, and we're presently around the 1949.30. So another indication that money is moving and ready to be deployed. We have not hit the breaking point yet.
Okay, so that's a lot of margaritas for me next week when I'm in Mexico. All right. Let me ask you, 4.406 on the 10-year right now. Screaming and yelling and the gnashing of teeth, and Trump and Powell have been going at it. What if Powell changes course? He said that, maybe we need to look at the average number of the inflation rate. Is that going to change the Dixie here a little bit? Will people start pushing money back into it if we're lowering rates like this?
One thing that you get is when rates begin to lower, investment opportunities open. And we always talk about the double bang, meaning if I can get an equity market appreciation, that's good. But when I look at the global world, if I can get an appreciation in the dollar at the same time, that's the double bang that the big money follows. That's what I believe we are about ready to begin to see. We just haven't hit the breaking point. I do believe that suddenly inflation is in control. All around the world, it's declining. So why would the United States stand out? We keep talking when we hear the Fed, Powell in particular, uncertainties. Tariffs could raise prices, inflation could go up. Well, they haven't yet. So when is we going to be data dependent? The worst thing I saw was today or yesterday when Fed President Bostic came out and said he expects the U.S. economy to slow, but not fall into a recession. And he only reiterates one interest rate cut. Okay, you know what's going to happen here very rapidly is that the American populace is going to look up at the mighty ivory towers of the Federal Reserve and say, please, sir, can I have another? Using an Oliver Twist quote. But why can't, if you can see that the economy is going to slow, you've got a dual mandate. Why can't we get a little smidge of 0.25% cut? So I do see the positives building. The Russia-Ukraine situation is one huge geopolitical. Oil prices, $75 down to present. Natural gas, suddenly lower. All the things that go into the inflation mix are lower. So I do see, Steve, a situation building. We just haven't hit the breaking point where the dollar begins to turn with the U.S. markets. I'm kind of thinking we still could be a week to 2 weeks out. Okay. I'm a little concerned we're a little bit overdone on the upside. So when it goes quiet, your technician, your technical traders all jump in and try to push the market the other way. And that would be a lower dollar, a lower stock market. But I don't see it happening because underneath of it all, and again, big things change and eventually take hold, you've got a situation where it looks, again, I'm not seeing the concrete details, but it looks like United States is really making an effort to get a handle on its budget deficit. And that, I think, could be one of the biggest positives yet that we have yet to see, but could be something that everybody should be watching.
And I'm just looking at, that popped up here, these factory orders, revised up 3.4% from 4.3%. That's a big downgrade, I think, right? That we expected factory orders to be way up, and they're not as up. Are companies still nervous? I mean, we're seeing now layoffs in big companies, especially companies that are international, right? That will affect the dollar and then the buyer here too as well. Is that still on your plate here as well?
Yes, layoffs are bad, obviously, as long as we can reabsorb. And with the unemployment rate still just above 4%, from our view, Steve, with our tenure, that's considered full employment. So, yeah, I'm concerned about those things. I'm concerned about weaker numbers, which is why when I hear Fed Bostic make that comment, I'm like, you're data dependent, right? Isn't that what central bankers always say? Well, now we're all of a sudden going to be making monetary policy because we are opinionated. Right. That doesn't make any sense at all. So, yeah, I think if we begin to see Powell shift to a more dovish, that's going to be the ignition to the market.
I asked Jim Iorio yesterday about the politicization of the Fed. That Powell has been so. And I like the fact that he is, keeping the Fed separate from the White House. The name calling has dropped to almost minimal now, which is good. We're somewhat back to normal there, I guess. And the question I asked was, is Powell digging his heels in now because the negativity towards him? I agree with Jim when he said something to the fact that he's a public figure. We all have the right to criticize his policies, but not him as a person, unless he's a bad person. And he's not. I think he's a great human being, to be honest. I think he's a pretty nice guy, very smart, but not listening to the real data. I believe, and I think you're saying the same thing. But is he digging his heels in because of Trump? Is he saying, okay, fine, Trump wants this, and he's been name calling me. I'm not going to lower rates because I've been asked to by the president.
I think, yeah, he's digging his heels in. And of course, nothing is ever personal in the financial markets. We're looking at data and our opinions are drawn on data. Of course, he's a very good man. He's giving his time to be, to run the monetary situation in the United States. But, I think that his cohorts in the governing council, I think have become a little too opinionated, but more so they've become, I don't like the word, but gun shy, in the sense that they're not willing to go out and make a firm forecast. They're waiting and waiting for the data, and then the data doesn't match up.
When I hear the words waiting for data, I just don't know what the data is, right? Yes. I mean, tell me what the data is. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the data is, right? I mean, he says it's this, it's unemployment. It says it's we have a dual mandate, and then I'm going to move the goalposts, and it's like, oh God, come on, pick a lane here, bro.
Right, exactly. So just judging that they're fearful of getting out there in front of the marketplace, then what's going to happen is we will begin to see more trade deals. We will begin to see this situation in the tariff front begin to play out. We will begin to see some sort of budget come out. And what's going to happen is he's allowing the politics of the day to rule monetary policy. He will be forced to lower rates because things suddenly are going to come out, and all the fear will be eradicated from their policy making.
Okay, when?
I'm going to say, Steve, the next meeting, you'll see the cut.
Boom, there it is. Steve Flanagan says we're going to have a cut next. I mean, but even with Bostic saying only one cut in this whole year, and even with Powell changing his mind, you're still saying cut. Okay, I like that. I want to see that. I mean, I've called for 3 cuts this year. We'll see.
Steve, at some point in time, the Fed has always been the anchor of not only the United States. Okay, I get it when they talk about our dual mandate, but the Fed has been involved since you and I have been in markets in a global agreement with other central banks, the G7, the G10, the G20, the G3, and they've always had a consistent monetary policy around the globe designed at a stable financial marketplace.
But Christine Lagarde cutting. Christine Lagarde cut, so why isn't he?
That's my point, Steve. Oh. At some point, Powell is going to be forced into, are you a world leader or not? Is the United States Central Bank the world's leader, the lender of last resort? And so they're going to have to shoulder some of that burden. That inflation is dropping. Europe is now talking going below neutral rates.
Right.
The UK, okay, they had a GDP of plus 0.2, but come on, it's, coming off of 0. Even if we look at Japan's GDP is now negative. So at some point here, the United States is going to have to shoulder its leadership in the financial marketplace and begin to move rates lower, or they are going to set up. I still believe the king dollar scenario is getting ready to get hatched. And if the United States maintains rates up here, then it is going to accentuate that move.
Okay. So as I've been saying in the past, good news has been bad news and bad news has been good news. That's the old flipperoo that we're so used to as traders. Is good news and bad news now?
Well, let's say if the economy begins to slow and the Fed lowers rates, that's kind of bad news. The economy's slow, and good news, they lower rates, and that's going to set off a very explosive investment market, I believe.
In equities, correct? And also with the Dixie?
And I think that the dollar index let's just take all these deals that keep getting done. All right, they're paper. But at some point in time, money has to move to buy dollars to invest. So yeah, Steve, that's kind of like a little tidal wave out there on the horizon that's going to be a consistent buyer. So yes, I do believe the Dixie moves higher as well.
And this is exactly why we built Quasar Markets, to understand the moves before they happen, not read the news and then figure out what's going to happen next. I like this, Steve. I think you're right. I think we do lower rates. I think it's a bold call on your side to say it for next meeting, because I'm not sure. I honestly can tell you I'm not sure. Should they? Yes. But the talk back and forth and the talking heads and the Bostics of the world, unfortunately, are not saying that same thing. And, I think it'd be a good thing, but then I think that's scared money. And I think that means that we are heading towards a recession. So then bad news becomes bad news, right? And good news is not so good anymore. All right. I like this. I think I see Howard Greenberg in here. I've got a meeting to run to, but Steve Flanagan, man, always good to see you. And I will drink a margarita with tahini around that rim in your honor, bro.
Enjoy one, Steve, for me and for Howard. Enjoy your week.
Thank you, sir.
Howard?
So, Mr. Flanagan, what are you looking at here coming up over next week? What do we got besides?
Well, one of the, as I was talking with Steve on the weekly closes, a bottoming pattern. This is, what a bottoming basing pattern looks like. If you look at the Dixie around the 180 level now, we're above last week's close of 142. The previous week, 100.04, 99.59, 99.08. So you've got these consistent, this would be week 5. I don't rule out that next week could see another sell-off as the technical traders in a quiet market say, hey, the dollar's bounced, it's overdone here. The RSIs, the stochastics are indicating overbought territory. But that's a tough call when you see the move down from the highs seen in February, the sharpness of that move down. You could run stochastics and RSIs in an overbought territory for a long time. So be careful on fading those moves or feeding into that narrative as we enter into next week. As I see it, a very bullish situation. So the one currency that I am watching here is sterling. Presently around the 132.85. I do have, if I go back in sterling, if you have a chart to the October 1st move down from the high, that weekly closing level right there was 132.84 and a subsequent breakdown all the way to 121. Okay, this is where I love using technical analysis because things tend to repeat themselves. And if you can look at now where we are today, the last 4 weeks of closes, you're kind of topping out here. Now, you have a definitive level in which to go long sterling if we break above these tops, no question about it. That's what's great about technical trading. It gives you definitive risk management levels. But what I'm looking at, since we're right on that closing level of 132.84, if we begin to break, I'm looking for a deluge of selling to come into sterling and push us down. I think it's very possible to see sterling, retest in around the 130 level. So that's, a 300-point move roughly in the pound. And I think that goes along with my overall Dixie play that we're putting a base in. I don't rule out that next week is going to be a little bit of back and forth as the bears still try to defend themselves here.
Sure.
But I am saying that, I would look at sterling trading higher as the bears defend themselves against the dollar, that I would look to be selling into that and using that 132.84 level as a daily closing. If we close below it, I think that you could begin to get momentum on the downside.
To the downside, yeah. You can see that for sure. You can see all the wicks. We've been able to go above it on it, on it, but we haven't been able to hold for that weekly close that you say is so important for the forex world. Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely looks lined up, and you can see here, even on the daily chart, it's been a strong resistance here on, this week without a doubt.
Right. And, you can react to when it breaks and you'll still catch a good move.
Yeah.
Because in between all this, very much like what's going on in the stock market, starts off negative, ends up positive next day, and people are churning out of and losing money. So when you begin to see moves like this, you begin to step back and you have to start looking around at the bigger picture. $7.5 trillion trades in one currency day. So by far, it is the largest liquidity market in the world, and money moves first. So I want to be able to watch these and saying, well, if everything is so negative in the United States, why isn't the dollar continuing to go down? And that begins to alert me that I need to be watching things a little bit more closely, because it could be the darkest before the dawn here. And I want to catch the bigger move and stay out of the washing machine.
Yeah, I don't want to get washed out. Right, exactly. I think you just hit on it. You and I seem to have a similar trading pattern. You can have your heads, you can have your tails. I'll take the body of the trade. There's enough juice in there, to keep me happy. That's sort of been, always my view on it is, it's just a little bit more conservative of approach. I want to see a proven breakout one way or the other. And I'll play at the edges, don't get me wrong, but I'll keep a real tight stop loss on those areas more so than I would in the body, maybe, while I'll give it time to work its way through some things and, ultimately play out my thesis.
I wanted to point out, just to leave our viewers with, I see money moving out of safe haven. I haven't seen the break yet in the bigger market, but I do see money moving out of the safe haven, plays here. The yen, the MEX, the Swiss franc, the euro dollar's gone sideways, although, we are closing at 111.95 roughly now. That's, substantially lower as well. 111.98 was the April break higher that sent us up to 153.75. So this is another level to watch. And then we've got news out potentially over the weekend. If we see some sort of, agreement out of this Ukraine-Russia situation that begins to move to a more concrete, development, that's a big geopolitical off the table. So we're getting very close to my break point. I said middle of May, end of May, early June, and I'm in that zone right now. So I'm watching carefully. This is the quiet before the storm. I feel very confident about that. I'm watching very carefully here, and I'm looking for the developments that are going to make the break and make this move, come to fruition.
Awesome. I agree with you on almost all of it there, sir. I do hope we see this geopolitical stuff work out. I just get concerned because we've had so many talks in the Middle East and in Ukraine that a deal is in the works. We're going to have a ceasefire. They announce a ceasefire, and 24 hours later, one of the two sides breaks the ceasefire. So let's hope that we have some calmer heads prevailing, and maybe the outside forces are calming the influence and can bring us to a spot where we can get to peace, because that's what I think we all want. On the markets, it just seems like you said, people are waiting to get more positive. It seems that they're quick to sell profits still. It's going to be, when do people let things run the way that Steve's been letting them run, quite honestly, BigBeat, more so than the people like myself and you that have been taking profits and running to the bank. That's going to be the difference, right? We're going to need more people to switch that whole philosophy back over and say, okay, I actually trust the market. So, and I do think any kind of Fed rate change would be where you would see that confidence come in. As you also mentioned, if the House or the Senate can pass the budget, that would be a big one. So we do have a lot of good things or a lot of news that could lead us more to the upside today. I do think, like you said, going into the weekend more than the downside. We've already seen sort of the downside of it. And it does look to want to play to the upside more. So, Steve, thank you so much. Like always, I really appreciate you. You have a great weekend, my friend.
You too, Howard. Take care, and see you Monday.
Absolutely.